The arrival of the beautiful strangers. The colony of New Terra was a peaceful place. It stood at the edge of human-controlled space, a thriving world where traders, miners, and explorers came to build new lives. The sky was always a deep shade of blue, and two suns burned brightly, casting golden light over the massive city of Haven's Reach. For Captain Ryan Carter, head of colony security, life was simple. He dealt with petty crimes, minor disputes, and the occasional off-world smuggler. But everything changed the day they arrived. It started with a signal from orbit. A large silver ship descended from the sky, its smooth metal gleaming under the twin suns. It was unlike anything the colony had seen before. Sleek, elegant, and almost too perfect. As it landed in the main docking bay, a crowd gathered, murmuring with curiosity and excitement. Carter stood at the front, arms crossed, watching as the ship's ramp slowly lowered. A group of tall, golden-skinned women stepped forward. Their movements were graceful, their eyes glowing faintly like stars. They wore long, shimmering robes that clung to their bodies, and their hair, smooth like flowing silk, shifted colors under the sunlight. The leader of the group stepped forward. She was breathtaking, taller than the rest, her golden tattoos swirling like liquid across her skin. Her deep blue eyes locked onto Carter's, and she smiled. "I am Lurza of the Zenari, traders of the finest treasures in the galaxy," she said, her voice like a melody. "We come in peace, and with an offer." The crowd murmured with excitement. Aliens, real aliens. The Zenari looked nothing like the reptilian or insect-like creatures from the outer worlds. They were beautiful, almost unnaturally so. Governor Elijah Vance, an older man with gray hair and a sharp mind, stepped forward to greet them. "Welcome to New Terra," he said. "What is it that you seek?" Lurza smiled again, her fingers gently brushing the golden necklace around her neck. "We seek trade. Your world is rich in gold and rare minerals. We have traveled far and would offer great treasures in return." The mention of gold caught everyone's attention. Gold was valuable, even in the age of advanced technology. Many miners and traders perked up, already imagining the fortune they could make. Carter, however, remained cautious. He had seen enough in his years of service to know that no one offered something for nothing. The Zenari were beautiful, charming, and polite, but there was something too perfect about them. "Forgive my curiosity," Carter said, stepping forward. "You call yourselves traders, but we've never heard of the Zenari before. Where is your homeworld?" Lurza tilted her head slightly, her smile never fading. "Our world is far beyond the mapped territories of human space, a place of beauty and riches." She paused, her gaze locking onto Carter's once more. "Perhaps, Captain, you would like to learn more. In time." Something about the way she said it sent a chill down his spine. But the governor seemed eager. "We welcome peaceful trade," he said. "Come, let us discuss terms." The Zenari were escorted to the governor's hall, where negotiations began. Meanwhile, the colony buzzed with excitement. Everyone was talking about the beautiful aliens, their riches, and the incredible opportunities this could bring. Later that evening, the Zenari moved freely through the colony, visiting markets and speaking with traders. They laughed and charmed their way into the hearts of many, especially the men. But Carter watched them closely. Something felt off. He had seen how they looked at human men, not just with curiosity, but with something deeper: hunger, possession. And that night, the first man went missing. The deal that started it all. The Zenari settled into the colony quickly. They established a trade hub in one of Haven's Reach's largest marketplaces, displaying rare treasures that shimmered under the artificial lights. Their offerings were unlike anything seen before: crystals that pulsed with energy, fabrics that changed colors with a touch, and devices so advanced they seemed like magic. In return, they asked for gold. At first, no one questioned it. Gold had been valuable for centuries, even in human space, but for the Zenari, it seemed to hold a deeper significance. They paid handsomely, offering 3, even 5 times its market value. Merchants, miners, and smugglers lined up, eager to make a deal. But as trade flourished, something strange began to happen. The vanishing men. The Zenari women were friendly with everyone, but their interest in human men was unusual. They were always smiling, always flirting. Many men found themselves captivated, almost drawn in, as if under a spell. Then, one by one, they started disappearing. The first to go missing was Daniel Hayes, a young miner who had just sold a fortune's worth of gold to the Zenari. He had been seen leaving with one of the alien women, his arm wrapped around her waist. He was never seen again. A few days later, a trader named Lucas Bennett vanished. He had spent hours at the Zenari trade hub, laughing and drinking with Lurza herself. The next morning, his apartment was empty. At first, no one noticed a pattern. The colony was busy and full of travelers, and people came and went all the time. Some assumed the missing men had left to chase riches elsewhere. But Captain Ryan Carter wasn't convinced. Carter's suspicions grew. Carter's instincts told him something was wrong. He began tracking reports, piecing together a pattern. Every missing man had spent time alone with the Zenari before disappearing. There was never any sign of struggle. No security cameras caught them leaving the colony. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air. Determined to find answers, Carter hacked into the colony's surveillance logs. He pulled up footage from the night Daniel Hayes disappeared. What he saw sent a chill down his spine. The footage showed Daniel entering the Zenari's private chamber, deep inside their trade hub. He walked in with a grin, his arm linked with a golden-skinned woman. The door closed behind them. Daniel never walked out. Carter fast-forwarded through hours of footage, checking every possible exit. Nothing. It was impossible. There were no hidden doors, no signs of him sneaking out. He was just gone. Something was very wrong. And Carter was going to find out what. The uneasy calm before the storm. The next evening, Carter went to the marketplace himself. He watched as the Zenari women smiled and laughed, as if they were harmless traders enjoying their success. But now he saw it differently. The way they looked at men, the way their eyes lingered too long, the way their fingers brushed against their skin, like they were tasting something unseen. Lurza noticed him watching and approached. "Captain Carter," she purred, her blue eyes shining in the dim light. "You've been avoiding us." "I've been busy," he said, keeping his expression unreadable. She stepped closer, her presence unnervingly warm. "You do not trust us." Carter met her gaze. "I trust what I can see, and I've seen people go into your chambers and never come out." For the first time, Lurza's smile faltered, just for a second. Then she laughed, smooth and melodic. "Captain, men are free creatures. If they choose to leave, who are we to stop them?" Her words were carefully chosen. Carter's jaw tightened. "I want to see the inside of your trade hub." "Now." Lurza tilted her head, considering. Then she smiled again, stepping back. "Very well, Captain, but I hope you are prepared for what you will find." Carter wasn't sure if it was a threat or a warning. But one thing was certain. He was getting closer to the truth. And the truth was about to be far darker than he had ever imagined. The first warning. Captain Ryan Carter followed Lurza into the Zenari's trade hub. The moment he stepped inside, the air felt different, heavier, warmer, almost unnatural. The walls shimmered like liquid gold, and soft, strange music hummed through the air, making his skin tingle. The chamber was large, filled with treasures from across the stars. Rare gems, alien technology, and golden ornaments that pulsed with an eerie glow. But Carter wasn't interested in any of that. He wanted to know where the missing men had gone. Lurza walked ahead of him, her golden robe flowing like silk. "Tell me, Captain," she said without turning around. "Why do you humans always assume the worst?" Carter's hand rested near his sidearm. "People are disappearing. That's not an assumption. That's a fact." She chuckled softly. disappearing or choosing. They stopped before a large golden doorway. Lurza placed her hand on the surface, and the metal rippled like water. Slowly, the doors opened. Carter stepped inside, then froze. The hidden chamber. Rows of glass pods lined the room, filled with a strange golden mist, and inside each pod was a human man, motionless, floating, their bodies glowing faintly as if their very essence was being drained. His stomach tightened. Daniel Hayes, Lucas Bennett, and at least a dozen more missing men. Lurza stepped beside him, watching him carefully. "They are not harmed," she said softly. "They are transformed." Carter's fists clenched. "What are you doing to them?" Lurza walked forward, trailing her fingers along one of the glass pods. "Your kind is unique. Your energy is unlike any species we have encountered." She turned to face him, her glowing blue eyes filled with something unreadable. "We take only what is given. These men chose to be with us, and in return they become part of something greater." Lurza sighed, as if disappointed. "Some did, some did not. But in the end, it does not matter. They are ours now." She reached out, brushing her fingers lightly against his arm. For a moment, Carter felt a strange warmth spread through his body, his mind clouding slightly. It was like standing in the sun for too long, dizzying, yet intoxicating. He shook it off, stepping back. Lurza's smile widened. "You are strong, Captain. That is rare. A dangerous escape." Carter knew he had seconds before this turned bad. He needed to act now. Without warning, he lunged at the nearest control panel, pulling out his sidearm and firing a shot. Sparks flew as the machinery exploded, and alarms blared throughout the chamber. The pods began to flicker, the golden mist inside them swirling violently. Lurza's expression darkened. "You shouldn't have done that." Carter didn't wait. He bolted toward the exit, gun in hand. The moment he reached the door, he heard a horrible shriek behind him. He turned just in time to see Lurza's eyes burning brighter, her golden skin darkening as energy crackled around her. She was changing. The Zenari weren't just traders. They were something else entirely. Something not human. And now, they knew he was onto them. Carter didn't stop running. He needed to warn the colony. He needed to get help. But deep down, he knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. The sinister truth revealed. Carter sprinted through the corridors of the Zenari trade hub, his boots pounding against the smooth golden floor. Behind him, alarms blared, and the walls pulsed with a strange, shifting light. The moment he had damaged the control panel, something changed in Lurza. Her beautiful, elegant form had begun to distort, her glowing tattoos flaring brighter. Whatever charm the Zenari held was a disguise, a mask covering something far more dangerous. And now, Carter had pushed too far. He burst through the main doors and into the colony marketplace, breathing hard. People turned to stare at him. Merchants, workers, and off-world visitors, all confused by the sudden commotion. "Security, get to the Zenari hub now," Carter barked into his communicator. But before he could say anything more, the golden doors behind him slammed shut, sealing the Zenari Trade Center completely. The crowd murmured in confusion. Had something gone wrong? Governor Vance appeared, pushing through the people. "Carter, what in the stars is going on?" Carter spun to face him, his eyes wild with urgency. "The Zenari, they're not who they say they are." He pointed to the locked doors. "They've been taking human men, draining them, using them." Vance's expression darkened. "That's a serious accusation, Captain." Carter shook his head. "I saw it. They have men trapped in pods, their life force being drained like some kind of fuel. That's what they wanted all along. Not trade, not gold. Us." A hushed silence fell over the colony square. People began to whisper, looking toward the golden structure. Then, the doors opened again. Lurza stepped out, her robe flowing behind her. But something was different. Her normally warm, golden eyes were brighter, sharper, more predatory. She smiled. "Captain Carter," she said smoothly, "you seem troubled." Carter's fingers tensed over his weapon. "You know damn well why." The governor hesitated. "Lady Lurza, these are concerning claims. Can you explain?" Lurza sighed softly, shaking her head as if dealing with a child. "Captain Carter has misunderstood. The men in our chambers, they came to us willingly. They wished to experience something beyond human limitations. We do not harm. We enhance." Carter scoffed. "That's a lie. They never came back." Lurza's smile didn't fade. "Because they chose to stay." The governor turned to Carter. "If there is no evidence of wrongdoing." "No evidence," Carter snapped. "Then where the hell are the missing men?" For the first time, Lurza's eyes narrowed. And in that moment, Carter knew she wasn't going to let him leave alive. The ambush. A sudden golden light exploded around them. Carter barely had time to react before figures emerged from the shadows. More Zenari women, stepping forward with eerie grace. Their hands glowed, strange energy humming between their fingers. The crowd gasped, stepping back. "This is bad," Carter muttered, reaching for his sidearm. Lurza tilted her head, still calm despite the growing tension. "Captain, you are making this difficult. Your people do not need to fear us. We could offer you something greater." Her eyes locked onto his. For a brief second, Carter felt it again. That warmth, that dizzying pull, like she was trying to reach inside his mind. But he was ready this time. He raised his gun and fired. The fight for survival. The plasma shot slammed into Lurza's shoulder, but instead of pain, she simply laughed. The wound closed instantly, golden energy knitting her flesh back together. Carter's stomach dropped. "Oh, Captain," she purred. "We are far beyond your weapons." The other Zenari lunged. Carter rolled aside, dodging as a golden blast burned through the air where he had been standing. Guards and soldiers rushed in, weapons drawn. The colony had never faced an alien threat like this before. The marketplace erupted into chaos. Shouts rang out as plasma blasts flashed, humans and Zenari clashing in a brutal fight. The air burned with energy, stalls shattered, and people ran for cover. Carter grabbed a fallen communicator. "We need backup. The Zenari aren't traitors. They're—" His words were cut off as Lurza struck. A surge of golden energy slammed into his chest, sending him flying backward. He hit the ground hard, his vision swimming. Above him, Lurza loomed, her form glowing brighter, more alien than ever. "You are strong, Captain," she murmured, "but you cannot stop us." As darkness threatened to take him, Carter realized one terrible truth. This wasn't just an invasion. This was a harvest, and humans were the prize. The deadly escape. Carter's body ached as he struggled to his feet. His chest still burned from the energy blast, but he forced himself to move. The colony marketplace was now a war zone. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, stalls and buildings burned, and terrified civilians ran for cover. The Zenari were no longer pretending to be peaceful traders. Their illusion of elegance had vanished, revealing what they truly were: predators. Lurza stood at the center of the chaos, her golden tattoos flaring with raw energy. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her gaze was cold, calculating. "This could have been easy, Captain," she said, her voice carrying over the screams and gunfire. Carter wiped blood from his mouth and glared at her. "Yeah? Well, I don't do easy." He lifted his plasma rifle and fired. The desperate fight. The blast struck Lurza square in the chest, sending her stumbling back. But before Carter could fire again, another Zenari appeared at his side, her hand glowing with golden energy. Carter barely dodged in time as the blast tore through the ground, leaving a smoking crater. "Damn it," he growled, rolling behind a fallen crate for cover. His rifle was powerful, but against the Zenari's regenerative abilities, it wasn't enough. He needed to think fast. Scanning the battlefield, he saw his security team pinned down near a burning transport vehicle. Some of them were injured, struggling to hold their ground. They weren't going to last much longer. "Carter, we can't hold them off," one of his officers, Sergeant Vale, shouted through the comms. Carter gritted his teeth. They needed an escape plan. Then he spotted it, a nearby power station. Turning the tables. The Zenari's golden energy was unnatural. Carter had seen their bodies pulse with it, had felt its strange warmth when Lurza tried to manipulate his mind. And if it was energy-based, it could be disrupted. Tapping his communicator, he contacted the colony's control center. "Command, I need an EMP strike on my location. Target the power station near the market. Now." The response came almost instantly. "Captain, that will knock out power for half the colony." "Do it," he barked. Lurza, now recovered, tilted her head. "What are you planning, Captain?" Carter smirked. "Let's find out." The EMP strike. A loud hum filled the air as the colony's power grid surged. Lights flickered, and the ground beneath them shook. Then, boom! A massive electromagnetic pulse ripped through the air. The Zenari froze. Their glowing tattoos flickered, their golden energy dimming. Lurza's eyes widened in shock. "No." Before she could react, Carter grabbed his rifle and fired again. This time, the shot didn't just knock her back, it hurt her. The other Zenari screamed as their power weakened. Some collapsed, their bodies struggling to function without their strange energy source. Others tried to flee, their illusions failing, revealing their true forms. Tall, sinewy beings with alien features, no longer the perfect golden goddesses they pretended to be. The colony's security forces, seeing the opportunity, opened fire. The escape Carter rushed to his men, pulling the wounded to their feet. "Move, move. Get to the transports." With the Zenari weakened, the colonists fought back harder. Plasma fire lit up the night, forcing the alien invaders into retreat. Lurza, struggling to stand, locked eyes with Carter one last time. "You don't understand what you've done," she whispered, her voice filled with something almost sad. Carter didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle. "I don't care." With one final blast, he sent her crashing to the ground. Then he and his team ran. They barely made it to the evacuation transports as the colony's defenses roared to life. Fighters shot through the sky, targeting the remaining Zenari forces. As Carter boarded the last transport, he looked out the window. The once peaceful trade hub was in flames. The beautiful Zenari were either dead, captured, or fleeing into the night. For now, the colony was safe. But Carter knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. The final battle. The evacuation transports roared through the sky, carrying the last survivors away from the burning colony. Below, Haven's Reach was in chaos. Fires raged, buildings collapsed, and the once thriving trade hub had become a war zone. Captain Ryan Carter gripped the edge of his seat, his heart pounding as he watched the devastation below. The Zenari had lost their advantage when the EMP strike disrupted their energy, but they weren't defeated. Not yet. Through the transport's viewport, Carter saw a massive Zenari warship descending from orbit, its sleek, golden hull reflecting the flames below. The Zenari weren't retreating. They were sending reinforcements. The colony's last stand. Carter activated his comm. "Command, we need orbital support now. The Zenari are bringing in heavy firepower." Static crackled in response. Then, "Copy that, Captain. The fleet is en route, but you need to buy us time." Carter looked at the faces of his surviving men. Most were injured, exhausted, running low on ammo. But there was no other choice. If they ran now, the Zenari would wipe out every last survivor. He exhaled sharply. "Pilot, turn us around. We're going back." Sergeant Vale gaped at him. "Sir, that's suicide." "Maybe," Carter admitted. "But if we don't stop them, there won't be anyone left to save." The pilot hesitated, then nodded grimly. The transport veered around, heading straight back into the fight. The face of the enemy. As they neared the battlefield, Carter saw Lurza standing atop the ruins of the trade hub. She was different now. Her golden glow had returned, brighter than before, and her body radiated pure energy. The EMP had only slowed her down. Now she was stronger than ever. The transport's weapons fired, strafing the ground with plasma blasts. The Zenari scattered, but Lurza didn't move. She simply raised a hand, and a massive golden shield erupted around her, deflecting the blasts like they were nothing. Carter clenched his jaw. Of course she had more tricks. The last plan. As they landed, Carter's mind raced. How do you kill something that keeps regenerating? The EMP had disrupted their energy, but Lurza had adapted. She was feeding off something else now. Then he saw it. The Zenari warship's core. The warship was glowing, its energy pulsing in sync with Lurza's aura. Carter's eyes narrowed. That's it. Vale, new target, he ordered. We're taking out that warship's power core. Vale stared at him. That ship's got shields. We don't have the firepower for that. We don't, Carter agreed. But she does. Vale's eyes widened as he realized the plan. You're insane. Carter grinned. Yeah, let's go. The final gamble. The team charged forward, blasting their way through weakened Zenari forces. Meanwhile, Carter broke away, heading straight for Lurza. She watched him approach, her expression unreadable. You fight when you should run, she murmured. Foolish. Carter didn't stop. You talk too much. Lurza raised her hand to unleash another energy blast. But before she could strike, Carter threw his weapon aside and lunged at her. The moment his hands touched her, he felt it. A surge of raw, electric pain. It was like grabbing a live wire, his body burning from the inside. But he held on. Because this was the plan. Lurza's energy flared as she instinctively drew power from the warship. Carter gritted his teeth through the pain, holding her tight as the connection strengthened. And then, with the last of his strength, he yanked out the detonator strapped to his belt. Lurza's eyes widened in shock. Surprise, Carter growled. He slammed the detonator onto her chest. Boom. The end of Lurza. The explosion engulfed Lurza in a blinding light. The raw force of it sent Carter flying, crashing against the rubble. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, the warship shuddered. Its golden glow flickered, then died. Lurza's body collapsed, her once radiant form turning dark and lifeless. The Zenari forces froze. Their leader was dead. Their power source was gone. And then, they ran. The remaining Zenari fled toward the warship, abandoning their fight. Within moments, the massive vessel lifted off, retreating into space. Carter lay on the ground, barely breathing, watching the sky as the Zenari vanished into the void. Victory at a cost. The battle was over. The colony was in ruins, but it was still standing. Sergeant Vale and the other survivors rushed to Carter's side, lifting him up. Vale grinned. Sir, you look like hell. Carter chuckled weakly. Feel like it too. He looked up at the stars, where the Zenari had disappeared. They'll be back, Vale muttered. Carter nodded. Yeah, but next time, we'll be ready. As the colony's remaining forces began rebuilding, Carter knew one thing for sure. Humanity had won this battle. But the war was far from over. The aftermath and the warning. The battle was over, but New Terra would never be the same. Fires still burned in the wreckage of Haven's Reach. Buildings lay in ruins, and the once thriving marketplace was now a graveyard of smoldering debris. The scent of burnt metal and plasma still lingered in the air, a reminder of the war they had barely survived. Carter sat on a makeshift medical cot, his body aching from the fight. Bandages wrapped around his ribs, bruises covered his arms, and exhaustion clung to him like a second skin. But he was alive. So were most of his people. Sergeant Vale approached, holding a datapad. His uniform was scorched, and there was a cut above his eye, but his grim expression told Carter that the news wasn't good. "How bad?" Carter asked, already bracing for the worst. Vale sighed. "We lost nearly a third of the colony. Infrastructure's crippled. Communications are down. We've got survivors, but—" He hesitated, glancing toward the crater where the Zenari trade hub once stood. "They took a lot of people before they left," Vale finished. "We don't know how many." Carter clenched his jaw. The missing. Men who had been trapped in the Zenari pods. Some had been freed before the final battle, but many were gone. Taken. And there was no telling where. The unfinished war. Carter pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the pain. "Get me a link to Fleet Command. We need to spread the word. This wasn't just a raid. This was a harvest." Vale nodded, already working on it. "But, sir, we both know this isn't over." Carter exhaled. He knew. The Zenari had retreated, but they weren't defeated. Lurza was dead, but she had been just one of them. And now, they knew humanity could fight back. Which meant, next time, they would come prepared. The message from the void. Just as Vale had turned to leave, a loud beeping echoed from a nearby terminal. A distress signal. One of the tech officers, still covered in soot, rushed to the console. "Captain, we're receiving an incoming transmission." Carter frowned. "From where?" The officer hesitated. "It's not coming from any known human channel." That sent a chill down Carter's spine. "Put it through." A moment later, the holoscreen flickered to life. A figure appeared, not human, but unmistakably Zenari. She wasn't as golden as Lurza had been. Her features were sharper, her eyes darker, colder. "My name is High Empress Xiana of the Zenari Dominion," she said, her voice smooth, but laced with quiet menace. Carter and Vale exchanged looks. "We received word of your defiance," the Empress continued. "You have killed one of our own, disrupted our plans." Her expression didn't change, but Carter could feel the weight of her fury. "You believe this is a victory," she said softly, "but all you have done is awaken us." The transmission cut off. Silence filled the room. Vale swallowed hard. That sounded like a threat. Carter exhaled, his mind racing. The Zenari weren't just coming back. They were coming in force. The final warning. He turned to his crew. "We need to get ready. We need weapons, defenses, reinforcements, whatever it takes." Vale nodded. "I'll rally the fleet. But, sir, when they come back, how do we win?" Carter glanced at the ruins of New Terra, his fists clenching. "We stop being prey." He met Vale's gaze. "We hunt them first."